Hey, so like a month ago, I made this React app, my personal page. First off, I'm gonna show it to you and make an overview of the code, basically, make a code review. So first off, here is this readme, and here's the link, which takes us to basically here. It's deployed on Github Pages, and here it is. So first off, it has 3 sections. We have public, which I don't even know why it's called public. It could be called like social, I guess, which would make sense. So let's go in here, and as you can see, there is kind of a fade-in effect, and the content of this section is being displayed. So it's like a fade-in transition, and the button changes the color. I initially planned to use YouTube API and Instagram API to kind of show kind of dynamic, data, like the amount of followers, maybe the amount of videos published on YouTube, maybe the link to the latest video, and same with Instagram, kind of maybe something like followers and whatnot. And I was actually able to kind of do that, but the problem is Google API for YouTube is like, it's not like they don't have a kind of public API. You have to you have to register your application, and you have to, create an API key and use that. It's not, it doesn't have public API, and I didn't need any kind of private information. If it had public API, it would suffice, but it kind of doesn't. And I really did not like that. So what I mean by that is that, like on with GitHub API, you can simply send a request and get data about a profile. It has a public API. Like right now, you don't need any API keys. You don't need to register anything. But with YouTube API, you have to register, and it's like, I didn't really like that. And also with Instagram, you have to register for Facebook developer or something, and like, it's just unnecessary, in my opinion, complexities. So I just decided to scratch that idea. So it simply has 2 links. Now let's go into this section. This is a more fun kind of section, and as you can see, when I switch between sections, kind of first off, the content from the previous section is faded out, and then from the new section, the content from the new section is faded in. Fade out and fade in. And here I actually used GitHub API. This is the link to the profile, and this here is data pulled with GitHub API. So the amount of followers, the amount of public repositories and popular repositories is basically, here I pull repositories that have at least 1 fork or star. And by the way, the picture here is also being pulled with GitHub API. And then about section is simply I really did not know what to put into about section, because it was kind of like I made a section first. I did not have any idea what to put in it, and at that point I had just stumbled upon a poem by Charles Bukowski called Bluebird, and I thought it's a pretty cool poem. So I decided to just paste it in here because I did not know what to put in about. So I just put this poem in here. Yeah, so it's pretty simple, and now let's get into the code. First off, app.js. Yeah, I use some of the functionality, some of the features that Material UI provides. One of them is theme. So I import theme provider and create theme, and in app component I first off initialize custom theme. I just change some values of the default theme, which is the primary color. I set it to kind of this green blue-ish color, and the secondary is kind of like a darker one, this one. And yeah, that's it. Simply here is the theme, initializing the theme, and the component returns, well, theme provider for Material UI, and then it has two components, profile display and content display. First off, let's start with profile display. So that's where I fetch, first off, fetch from the GitHub API, I fetch my user info, and then I change the states. So here I have avatar UI state, and basically once we get the response, we set avatar URL to the data.avatar URL. So here I've just made a get request, and here's what we get in as our data, right? And there is kind of a data about the GitHub user, so there is login and stuff like that, and here is avatar URL, and this is the URL to the avatar. Let's even go here, and here is the avatar, right? The profile picture. Here it is. And yeah, it has a bunch of other stuff, which I'll be using in another section. So yeah, and here we simply return profile image, and we pass in as a prop avatar URL, and then just my name. So let's go to profile image. It's a component that simply returns if we don't have an avatar URL. So the it was what you saw when I reloaded the page, and it was, you saw just then, it was kind of gray, brown gray kind of thing, you know. So if we haven't got the user data from the GitHub API yet, then it will be kind of this dark brown circle, and once we get it, it will return the actual image. So if we don't have avatar URL, we set as a source for image unloaded pic, otherwise we set the avatar. So unloaded pic is in unloaded PNG, which is simply a circle, a dark brown, this kind of, I guess it's not even that dark, it's just a brown circle. Okay, so that's profile display. Let's close it up, and then we have content display. Now, content display has basically, first off, it has buttons to switch between sections, so public, GitHub, and about sections, 3 buttons in here. And so when we click on the button, it calls transition to function, and transition to function, first off, it checks if the current section is already that section that is being pressed on. So for example, if I open this section and I click on the same section, nothing happens. Because here we simply return, nothing should happen because it's the same section. But if we click on another section, it kind of fades out and then fades in. So if it's the same section, we do nothing. When we want to switch to another section, first off, we set fade to fade out. So the class name in here is gonna change to fade out, and the content is gonna be faded out. So the class, it's a CSS class, fade out, opacity 0, and transition opacity 0.5 seconds. So that's basically how we fade out, and that's why we wait half a second in the timeout. Here we wait 500 milliseconds, which is half a second, because our fade out transition we set it to half a second. And then once the time passes, we change the current section, which in turn changes the content because we pass in this state as a prop. And also the fade state is being set to fade in, which is transition opacity 0.5 seconds. Is the opacity is not 0, so it's gonna be faded in. So that's how we fade in the new content, the content from the new section. And the content, the prop current section, if it's public, we return public section. If it's GitHub, return GitHub. If about, then about. If there is no current section, then we just return null, which is simply like an empty, right? The content component is empty. And public section, nothing special here, simply some description and a button to go to the website. And go to website is being implemented like so: window.location.href equals to link. And we provide links in the in this kind of, I guess it's anonymous function. I think that's what it's called in here, or lambda, I guess, function. And then GitHub section is where we also fetch APIs. So here we also fetch the user info, this info here. So when we get the data about the user, we then fetch repos URL. Yeah, here it is. So that's basically a link to fetch the repos of the user. Let's try this. And here are all the repos of the user, basically. So we get user data, then we fetch users repos data, and then we set the repos data, which is a state, as well as user data. And here we display kind of the amount of followers and the amount of public repos. And then we get popular repositories, and we get them by, first off, we're filtering. So basically, if a repo has at least one star or at least one fork, then it's gonna be taken in as a popular repo. And then we sort popular repos by, well, at the top is gonna be the most popular based on the sum of stars and forks. And then we slice the repos, so we are only gonna display 5. I just decided to only display 5 tops. And yeah, and here we return a list with repo display. And repo display simply displays a name and a description. in, and we're using here list item and list item tags and list here, which is a material UI element. And we're left with about, which is pretty simple. Simply we have this poem, and that's it. Yeah, so I guess that's it. That's all I wanted to show. Thank you, and yeah, bye.